I'm young enough to remember when Biden said that there was going to be let's put a bullseye on Trump. Schumer talking about releasing the whirlwinds. There was a recent podcast where Newsom was on X, and he's talking about fighting fire with fire. You need to punch the sons of bees in the mouth. I also found a Charlie Kirk tweet, X post from April 7th. Assassination culture is spreading on the left. 48% of liberals say it would be at least somewhat justified to murder Elon Musk. 55% said the same about Donald Trump. So what do we make of this?
Well, I mean, the violence from the left, where do I begin? I could go back to Abraham Lincoln and President Garfield and President McKinley, three Republican presidents assassinated by Democrats. By the time a Democrat president got around to being assassinated, it was John F. Kennedy. He was assassinated by a communist, or maybe by the CIA, but by a communist.
Same thing.
Same thing, named Lee Harvey Oswald. And I got to tell you, I mean, the political violence from 1968 in Chicago, they still blame the police for that. It was the Democrats. It was the lefties. President Trump was actually shot through the ear. Another guy, Ruth, is on trial right now for trying to kill Trump, a second assassin. There was a third would-be assassin in Idaho that was arrested. Congressman Steve Scalise was shot and nearly killed on a baseball field by James Hodgkinson, who was a volunteer for the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign, in yet another suicide attack. And they love January 6th. January 6th never would have happened if the Democrats had not normalized mob political street violence in 550 riots from Seattle and Portland to Kenosha, Wisconsin, where they're burning, sacking, looting, plundering, killing dozens of people, injuring thousands of police. And they normalized it to the point where some people got the misimpression that a violent riot was mostly peaceful. And that's the only reason that January 6th happened in the first place. And the only person killed that day was Ashley Babbitt, who was shot while unarmed by a police officer, a Capitol Hill police officer, after she served 12 years honorably in the U.S. Air Force, and she wasn't kicked out like Hunter Biden for repeated cocaine abuses.
Yeah, and you listed a few examples that I missed. Two others, Luigi Mangione is one that comes to mind, and then the two young people who were gunned down outside. It was the Israeli embassy. Yes,
employees. Right.
Exactly. Some recent examples. Jason, are we wrong to say that the left is the one going after this political violence?
I think political violence is always unacceptable. And I would say if you want to talk about El Paso, where they shot 19 people and it was a far-right extremist, or Buffalo or Tree of Life, where there were far-right extremists who killed massive amounts of people. You could also talk about the shooting this summer at the CDC, where a police officer was killed, and the media barely covered it, left or right. Melissa Hortman, and of course the other state House member, legislator in, what's that? I'm sorry.
Tim Walston.
Well, by a Democrat who had served on two Democrat governors' commissions.
He went after only Democratic politicians. And then you can also
voted against the Democratic
and again, we can talk about, of course, the Democratic governor of Pennsylvania, whose house was firebombed by a guy
by a Democrat.
By a guy who said that he wanted to vote. He wanted everyone around him to vote for Trump. Again,
but I got to tell you, Jason,
that's a fact.
That is such a crock. I can't let that go. It was an anti-Israel lunatic.
It was,
and that's the Democrat Party's movement this year, is to be anti-Israel and pro-Hamas. And he firebombed the Jewish governor's mansion.
In Michigan, in those Palestinian areas, did they vote for Trump?
And I never heard of several of these things that you mentioned elsewhere. One person was killed somewhere, and you blame political violence.
Again, I'm just saying political violence is unacceptable on both sides. We need to condemn it, and it's sad that we're getting into a partisan disagreement or argument rather than just saying, let's tone this down and let's stop with political violence.
Well, some of us have been saying that for a long time, and it's the left that is overwhelmingly perpetrating the political violence, from the riots to the assassinations to everything else, and they're pro-Hamas, and that's why the governors, we wanted everybody to vote for Trump, rump. It was an anti-Israel leftist.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.